Very much. The next item on the agenda is the Canterbury Sports Limited 466 to 482 Yaldhurst Road approval of the final Section 71 proposal under the Greater Christchurch Regeneration Act, and this went to no committee, so it's just coming straight here. So Vicky would like to move it and Aaron would like to second it.
I'll move it. Thank you, Vicky.
Okay, Aaron's moved it, Vicky seconded it, and it's now open for questions. Is there any discussion? Yep.
Page 199 4.6.3 talks about the impact on the existing and planned recreational facility network. I'm just curious because obviously the Hornby pool has been delayed, and I just wonder why we would stop private company actually looking at creating an aquatic centre that will actually take casual recreation and actually reduce the impact on council.
That is really based on the spaces and places assessment, which is a plan done by Sports New Zealand, who have outlined what facilities we need, including post-earthquake and including the areas which are being developed and more populated. And the conclusion was that we have more than enough aquatic facilities in Christchurch to meet our needs in the short and medium term. Another aquatic facility would be required in about 10 to 20 years. Now, allowing another large aquatic facility on Yaldhurst, in the Yaldhurst facility, could potentially mean effects on our own facilities in terms of taking clients away and making them unsustainable.
So, but at the moment we haven't actually built the Hornby pool, and it's actually been pushed back even further. So technically we could say, actually, we may not need the Hornby pool because we got, obviously the Rollston's got a very large aquatic centre. And
thank you. This is not the item that we're addressing today.
Very large aquatic centre in just around the corner in Yaldhurst Road.
Well, the Spaces and Places plan takes into account Hornby as a proposed plan, meaning the council has committed to it in terms of long-term plan and finances. So that is taken as a facility that is going to happen, albeit it's not built yet.
Okay. So I guess the key thing is though that actually we don't want to, I think, stop private companies actually providing facilities for Christchurch residents just so we can build them and operate them.
But also we don't want to create a conflict between our facilities and theirs, and the idea is that we're not trying to stop them from having an aquatic facility. What we are saying is that you initially were indicating to us that you really want the facility for athletes to train and compete in, which is fine. But as soon as they start, letting the general public in and learn to swim lessons, then all of a sudden the adjoining facilities that we run might be running into loss.
Yeah, I totally agree with what we currently run. I guess it's just more of a question if they were going to do it, then we could say, hang on, we don't need to build something else for millions of
yes.
things.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Yanni.
I mean, I was kind of struck by that as well, given that we don't place that same restriction on a number of private swimming providers that have opened up in this area. We don't provide it on malls when they expand, having gyms, for example. So why would we do it for this one and we haven't done it for others?
Well, it's the other private facilities that we have currently in Christchurch. Obviously, we're filling a need. That one, as the Spaces and Places plan indicates, is not really going to fill an identified need or fulfill a need. It's surplus at the moment. In another 10, 15 years, it may well be that the population growth and the growing need will make the facility necessary to meet the demand of a particular area or a particular generational group. But at the moment, it potentially could spell trouble for our own facilities. if it was open to the general public.
I understand the concern around it competing with our own facilities, but what I can't see is the consistency with the logic that we've enabled all these other gyms to open up in the city next to our facilities. We've allowed shopping malls to expand that include gyms within them. We've allowed, and I don't know what consenting it goes through, but there's been a whole bunch of new private providers in terms of swimming lessons, for example, in some areas of the city. So I just don't quite understand why we would place one restriction on this and not have that same restriction on the others, and how that's actually fair to the public, who obviously would want to make a choice about where they might choose to go. If you lived like in Yaldhurst, you might want to go to the pool that's closest to you rather than travel halfway across the city to go somewhere now.
Again, the same reasons really. All the private facilities that you're talking about that are providing swimming lessons or just general recreation have been taken into account in the Spaces and Places plan. So they obviously existed before the plan was drafted, and it's very recent. It was finalised at the beginning of this year. So it takes into account what is actually on the ground and what is being planned or proposed. Planned meaning, whether it's us or other private bodies are committed to it financially, or planned like Yaldhurst, that's still in the planning and not committed stages. So in that context, that particular aquatic facility is surplus. And we're not saying that it's going to be surplus forever. It may well fulfill the need that arises in 10 years' time.
So can I just a process question? If we're not happy with that being in there, are we able to move an amendment that it gets removed? And if so, what's the time to do that?
Well, we wouldn't be able to get it removed if it's built. We can impose perhaps, we probably wouldn't be able to impose any further restrictions. At the moment, what the rules are proposing to do is to restrict the use of that facility to sports training and competition. So we're not saying it cannot be built, we're saying it should be used for sports purposes rather than the general recreation.
So we've been through a process of discussing this with CSL and strategic partners and other interested parties, and they've agreed and are happy with what we have here. So we wouldn't be wanting to go back and reopening.
I just wonder whether staff wanted to provide some commentary on the need for the plan to be aligned with the purposes of the Act, including the regeneration purposes of the Act, which is one of the restrictions, and likewise commentary on the likelihood and the assessed priority of any aquatic facilities.
Yes, that's another aspect of the process that we are putting this proposal through. The Greater Christchurch Regeneration Act requires us to assess whether there is an existing need for the proposal and whether it meets the purpose of the Regeneration Act, which is quite specific in what tests it requires the proposal to meet. And one of those tests is the test of the need. And naturally, while there is an identified need for other facilities on the Yaldhurst Recreation Centre, there is definitely no need that can be supported for aquatic facilities, hence that restriction. However, in terms of gyms, indoor stadia, or football facilities, there is definitely an identified unfulfilled need for them in the city.
Just so I'm clear, so even though we're being asked to approve it today, we can't make changes to it, or we can?
No, because then it would have to go back through the whole consultation process again. We're in a process. Okay. We signed this off. It's been consulted with Regenerate Christchurch, DPMC, NZTA, and affected neighbours, and this has been, and they've worked through with CSL directly.
Yep.
Yes.
So everyone's kind of signed off on it, and the minister will now be required, if we send this to her, the minister will be, the minister will be required to publicly notify it and receive submissions from the public on it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, I don't want to slow this down. It's already taken a long time.
Yeah.
But I just think it would be good to get some advice around the impact on our current facilities, because I just want us to be consistent, and also the feedback I've had from people like with Gilly Park is that, or Graham Condon, is that people, actually there's not a lot of space, they're running at really full capacity, so I personally just can't understand
Yeah, but what you have heard staff explain very clearly is that they take into account the future build as well that we have committed to on our LTP. Sarah?
Thank you. Just a really minor wording question that might be like a technical legal thing. On page 22 of your thing, which is 241 of our agenda, so 18.10.27b2, it says for an aquatic facility, where the use is not permitted at an aquatic facility on the site would impact the sustainability of it. I'm just wondering if the word not needs to be there, because it's the potential
you're
uses.
talking about a rule, 18 point...
Page 22, so 18.10.27.
10.27.
18.10.27, yes, and which sentence are
Oh,
we...
it's just that whether use is not permitted at an aquatic facility would impact the sustainability of, but surely it's whether any uses of the facility would impact.
Well, no, because the rules are actually not permitting certain uses, so that's the assessment matters are referring to a potential resource consent where the what would be proposed is basically the uses that are not permitted by the rules. So whether those not permitted uses would actually impact on... Okay,
so the not permitted is the district plan term, as opposed to just generally not permitted. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Just checking. Just read funny. I stayed away from there. So. Aye.